Hey everybody, it's Corey. We're back with Blue Talks after our little break. We had a chance to have a quick break in between. We don't normally get that opportunity, so I was okay with taking that. And I feel it's also great because it gives us a fresh start again with a fresh new guest. And so excited. As you can see by the screen, we already have our guest on with us. So Debora Hollick, first of all, so excited to have you on board. And secondly, did I pronounce your last name properly? I always worry about last names when I don't ask. And third, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself before we jump right in?
Well, I'm very excited to be here with you and Kelly today. I'm excited to be one of your authors in the collaboration book 3 of Business, Life, and the Universe right here. Yeah. And behind me.
I got mine up on the bookshelf.
Very honored to be part of that. I've been a business owner for many years now. I have a strong background in sales, and I grew up on a farm in northern Saskatchewan, I should say, and had a pretty well-rounded upbringing. You know, I enjoyed growing up on the farm and whatnot. I come from a decent-sized family, lots of relatives, so it was always good. And so lots of different experiences, and a lot of those experiences shaped who I am today. I branched out on my own a long time ago. So it's, like being an entrepreneur, you have your ups and downs, and the ups are great, the downs not so much. And I've learned my part in those downs. And as my title says in the book, listen to the whispers or get the 2x4. I've had a few.
I so love that. That's amazing. And yeah, I think one of the things you learn about entrepreneurship as you continue down this path is that anybody who says that they haven't had any difficulties or challenges or faced any obstacles or made mistakes in entrepreneurship, the only thing I can say is that they haven't been doing enough yet, because entrepreneurship does not. I've yet, and I mean, I speak from a point of view of having interviewed now 6,500 thought leaders. I've yet to discover one entrepreneur that's been going more than 5 years that hasn't had more than one challenge. So I love that you shared that, Debora.
Not a problem. It's I think contrast is what helps us move forward. You know, we're always being called toward, and I believe that out of chaos creates consciousness. So the more conscious we become, the better it is.
So agree. And so can you tell us then, if we dive in a bit further, can you tell us a little bit about the work you do with clients? Just a little bit of what that looks like?
Yeah, I've had a marketing business for many years, and like a lot of people right now, that's changed a little with COVID and with everything going on. So I've coached for many years and been a speaker, and I kind of put that kind of on the back burner a little bit to do the marketing side. So now I'm kind of revisiting all of that, if you will, and reinventing some of what I did then that fits now. And so I help business people who feel they're in an abyss of constant chaos, confusion, and cussing, sort of smash through their stuff, their barriers. And so then, they can sort and shift and succeed as they choose. That's what I love to do.
Amazing. I love that. And I guess maybe if we start from there, because that's another area I feel is important to a lot of people. But when you say help them break through the barriers and breaking through the stuff that's, they're getting stuck in the mud, if you will, breaking them through that mud, are there some common things you see that this is what people over and over again run into this brick wall? Or like, are there some common obstacles that you could cite to us that you see happen over and over again?
Well, I think the biggest one for most of us, and myself included here, pick me. I told you I get those 2x4s, is we get in our own way, I think. I've been in my own way, and when I move out of the way and let the universe orchestrate it and go with the flow and go with the path of least resistance, my life is pretty darn good. And so I've noticed that I'm not much different than most. And so I'd like to help people, identify their path of least resistance and what they're being called toward, and work through what they feel they're fearful about. You know, we've all got fears, and, you know, fear is just a thought, really. It's, you know, it's really not anything to get overly excited over, but we tend to put it up there in the forefront. And as soon as we give it a lesser meaning and we, you know, work through it, I think that people move on. So when people can get on their path of least resistance, and when I'm saying that, I'm not saying that the path of least resistance is no resistance. It's just where there's the most positive energy propelling them forward. And as people get to work through that, I find it to be pretty successful.
Amazing. And Kelly, I mean, I don't want to take all your thunder. Kelly, did you want to jump in there as well? Did you have anything you want to ask Debora as well in that regard?
I love what you're talking about, you know, being hit over the head by a two by four, because a lot of times we get those little whispers of our heart that telling us what to do, and we ignore them. And I know I've had a few 2x4s in my life too. And, you know, a lot of times the reason we have those challenges or complications is because the universe is trying to steer us into another direction. And I find a lot of times we think, some people might think, well, they're putting these challenges in front of us to see how high we're going to jump to get over it. But I think sometimes it's just a redirection of a whole new thing that we're supposed to do.
Exactly. We don't, you know, when we're driving down the highway, when we see a road barrier, none of us get out of our cars and jump up and down and scream and yell and why is this here? We just go a different way. Oh, well, it's saying go over here. How come that's so easy on the highway?
It's so true. You know, and I don't know the answer to that, because it's like, I find it's like the same thing when people talk about, and again, like you said earlier, I'm the same, I'm no better, but it's the same with when people have, for example, challenges with eating healthy. And yet we all, I think, inherently know what eating healthy is. You know, we all know what types of food we should be eating. We've heard it a million times, but it doesn't mean it's easy to do. And it doesn't mean we follow through on it, right? Like, it's the same idea. So you could say, well, how come we have to be hit over the head with a 2x4, knowing what we're supposed to do? But it seems like as people, we have to make the mistakes over and over again to learn what not to do the next time.
I agree with that. And I think what we're focusing on, you know, and I'm going to speak to the eating healthy part, because I for sure like lots of things that aren't quite so healthy, but I really like the healthy stuff too. But, you know, one of the things I focus on the most in my life is not being overweight. And I did that from a very young age when I wasn't overweight and was, you know, constantly consumed with it. And guess what I got? And guess where I still am, because what am I still constantly consumed with? You know, and sometimes when you go, oh, to heck with it, just go with the flow, everything just goes a lot easier. And, you know, you step on the scale and all of a sudden you go, well, how can that be? And anyway.
No, I love that. And I think it is so true. And I mean, it's also true what you said. I mean, I've been talking about this a lot lately, but the fact that, and I say talking about it, I just mean like having conversations with a lot of people about it, but the idea around what you think and what you put your focus on, how you're obviously going to get more of it if you keep thinking about it.
Oh.
You know, it's like how we say, you know, whatever the it is. So it could be, why can't I get out of debt? And as we all know now, if we believe in the law of attraction and all those things, what do? We get more debt. Every time we ask the question, why can't I get out of debt? We get more of it. Because as they say, the universe doesn't hear the why can't I? They just hears the big word there, which is debt. Oh, you want more debt? Okay, I'll send more your way. And so, you know, same idea, right? I feel like there is a work involved in us training ourselves not to think that way all the time, but you have to do the work. It's
For
like,
sure.
I remember this, that somebody told me once that went to AA a lot, and they said, essentially, faith works if you do the work. AA works if you do the work. But if you don't do the work, you could go out there and say, oh, that thing's all crap and it doesn't work for anybody.
Right.
The people I know that have invested spent their time in it and have immersed themselves in it, they have had positive results. So I think it's the same thing. I think if we constantly ask ourselves over and over again, why can't I get rid of this? Why can't I do that? We're probably going to get more of this or that.
Oh, for sure. I think that anybody can prove that to themselves. And I think if we look back over our lives and where our headspace was and our emotions, I think emotions play a real big part in things. And I think if we look at where we have been emotionally at certain things in our lives, you can go back and go, now I see where I was at in that. I see what my mindset really was. I was telling this story, but I didn't really believe that story.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's well, there's another thing. And I mean, I didn't mean to go down this path, but I might as well for a second. It's another thing. It's like the idea of, are we really believing it? So, for example, when you talk about manifestation and law of attraction and stuff like that, some people say, well, I couldn't manifest this because, or it didn't work because. But I was reading a book by a guy named Neville, and he has, I can't remember his last name, Neville Goddard is what his name is. And he's this thought leader from back in the day. So he's, from pre-Napoleon Hill. And one of the things that he said was that he talked about how there's one thing is to say, I believe this, like I am rich, I'm abundant, I'm successful. But inside, do you actually, have you actually felt it? Like, do you feel it in your bones? So do you believe it, or are you saying you believe it?
Exactly.
And I think there's a difference there. So when people say the law of attraction doesn't work, the question is, do they really believe when they're saying, I am already in possession of this? Do they really feel like or believe they are in possession of it? Or have they been told that you're supposed to talk that way to get it?
But here you just said the key word. You said, do they really feel? And
right.
Therein lies the key for everything, is what we actually feel about something. I believe. That's my belief system. And so when we can find, maybe we do start off saying, I'm rich, I'm abundant, I'm slim, I'm healthy, I'm this, I'm that. And maybe it doesn't feel so much. But as we start looking for reasons to feel that way, as we see the richness about us, as we notice what's healthy about us, okay, my toe hurts today, but gee, my hands are really feeling great. My back doesn't hurt. So who cares about a little sore toe? You can start to feel differently, right? And once you start feeling those feelings, then you get more of that. You get more, and people call it alignment. Some people don't agree with it, but I say everybody just prove it for yourself. You don't need some guru to come along and tell you that. It's just life to me.
Yeah, and I like what you just said too, because I think it also comes back to it's what you believe. In other words, you don't need to believe it for somebody else. You don't need to try it for somebody else. If it works for you, great. If you think it's all a bunch of crap, great. Then you'll get that's what you'll get if you try it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's give it a try yourself, and if it serves you, great. And if it doesn't, great. I will say, and then I'll move off of this area because it's a totally different area than I plan to go down. But I will say the other thing is I came into all the stuff as a skeptic, like the idea of that thoughts become things. And I've done a lot of work on it recently, and I started noticing synchronicities coming into my life. So what I started doing was writing them down, because James Redfield in the Celestine talks about the more aware you are of them, the more they're going to happen in your life. And so I thought there's no better way to make myself aware of them than to keep a list of them, to write them down as they happen. And so I've been doing that for a while, and lo and behold, I see 4 or 5 things a day that years ago I would have said that can never happen. And I'll see 4 or 5 of them in a day. So as somebody who came into it as a complete skeptic and thought it was, for lack of a better way of saying it, gypsy work, I didn't know what it was, but I didn't think it was for me. And here I am, more sold than I've ever been, because I'm witnessing them happening daily. So to your point, Debora, I think like anything with that, you have to lean in, see if it speaks to you. If it doesn't, lean back out. If it does, stay leaned in.
Exactly. And one more thing to that, celebrate those things. Celebrate them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I should start doing that.
The more you celebrate those, some people call them wins, some people call them accomplishments, some people just call them luck. I don't care what you call it, but have fun with it. Have fun. I did that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also the idea that the universe, understanding that the universe is working for you. It's not trying to set you up or what have you. And so, yeah, so for me, like I said, this stuff has all become far, I wouldn't say too real, it's become real in my life. And so I wanted to, Kelly, I want to give you a chance to jump in here before we switch gears. Anything you want to share around this idea of we're talking about thoughts become things? And
I'm a total big, huge believer in all of that stuff. And in fact, one of the things that comes to mind is one time I said to myself, I would love to manifest a speaking gig in Winnipeg on Valentine's Day. And because I wanted to see a friend of mine. And sure enough, within a week or two, a school had contacted me and said, hey, do you want to come and speak at our school on Valentine's Day? We're doing a special thing, celebrate love with friends and all that. And I just shook my head because I was like, oh my God, this really does work, right? And it's just amazing how precise you can get and things will happen for you. Even when I wanted to meet Wayne Dyer, and I said to myself, I'd really love to meet Wayne Dyer and Doreen Virtue. And sure enough, on Facebook, up popped up this conference that Hay House was doing. Wayne Dyer, Doreen Virtue were the speakers. And then I said to myself, okay, show me the money, because at that time I didn't have the money to go. And sure enough, a week later, I got a check in the mail for $1,500. Plus, the credit card company upped my limit $1,000. And it was like, there you go, there's the money. And so I went, and sure enough, I was able to give Wayne Wayne and Doreen, one of my blankets that say, you are loved, you are needed, you are wanted. They got the first 5 prototypes. And get this, Wayne Dyer passed away 3 months later.
Wow.
So if I wouldn't have gone, I would have been kicking myself in the butt for not going. But it was just all these little synchronicities that lined up. And, I was able to go and talk to him and get a picture with him and everything. So I was just so grateful for all the synchronicities that lined up to make that happen for me.
And, Kelly, none of that surprises me at all. And it's kind of interesting you say that, because the conference you went to, I don't know this for sure, but I'm willing to bet it was the conference right before the one we went to, because Shelly and I bought tickets to go to the Hay House conference that Wayne was involved in, and it was the one when he passed away about a week before. So we went to the one we went to. Now, I had seen Wayne live before that, but the one we went to, he had passed away just a week before. So if you say it was 3 months, the one you went to, he passed away 3 months after. Yep. We had to be at the opposite conferences. Like ours was in Orlando, Florida. But yeah, it's just amazing. And to talk about synchronicity, at that conference we went to, that's where I met Elise. And so Elise is the person that co-hosts my other Blue Talks event with me. We met there. That was almost 6 years ago. I reached out on Facebook. We kept in contact, and here we are co-hosting a show together now. So
that's so incredible. It is. I love it. The synchronicities that come from stuff is just amazing.
So Debora, we talked. I wanted to switch away from this. I wanted to go down that path for a few minutes and then switch away. I wanted to ask you as well about COVID, because you talked about COVID and it changed things. So can you talk about what life looks like now? Like, in other words, COVID had you pivot and make different moves and changes. Has it been for the better? As COVID, have you embraced it? Like what it put you through and all that kind of stuff? I always like to hear everybody's been dealing with COVID.
Well, I haven't had COVID.
No. I mean,
but it affected my clients. The day, that they basically shut things down the first time, my income, my business was done. And not that, just because my clients were affected so badly. And so if the clients don't have the work, they can't pay you to do anything. And it affected everything we did. So it gave me, I just looked at it as an opportunity to go back to what I was doing, many, many years ago, where I was speaking and I was, doing more, intuitive coaching or consulting, and just, getting back more into that, taking a look at, what do I really want to be doing? I love both my businesses. I've got my Our Insightful Solutions business, which is the marketing, and I've got the Smash Through Mentor business, which is the intuitive coaching and consulting. So I'm kind of a split personality. So it's not the first time I've had to reinvent myself. I believe as entrepreneurs, you better be ready to get reinventing yourself most of the time, because life changes and life throws you curveballs, and life happens for you, not to you. And sometimes that's a little hard to get your head wrapped around, but you just got to do it, and you move forward, and you be grateful for everything there is. And yeah, so that's kind of what it's given me a chance to focus on. So I'm, focusing more on the intuitive coaching side and helping people get through their stuff. I seem to get ideas when stuff comes through me and people go, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Oh, how did you know that? And I love that, because it's like, I always say they, and they just give me everything I need at the time. And when it helps someone else, that makes my heart sing.
Amazing. And how about, I guess, on the other side of things, when we talked about marketing, in your perspective and based on what you've seen, how has marketing changed? Like, what have you seen, in terms of the marketing world, COVID versus pre-COVID?
Well, our marketing that we've done in the past, I've helped people with marketing campaigns and things like that, and things for their website and everything. But what we've done in the past is introduce products and services business to business. So we do the toughest part of the salesperson's job. We're the one who finds out who's the decision maker. Is there a legitimate interest and need for whatever our clients are offering? And we do our best to develop that relationship. So developing relationships now, to me, has become even more challenging, because try to get somebody on the phone nowadays, so it's just very, very different than it was. People aren't in their offices. People are working from home. They're getting messages. They're, this sort of stuff. And they're getting a lot of calls. So it's just really changed. So I think people are doing more now with social media, Clubhouse, many platforms. And we're blessed to live in a day and age where there are this many platforms. So it's changed. All of that has played a part, email and LinkedIn and Facebook and everything. But the actual getting to speak to people now is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's such a great point. That's something I haven't heard anybody else bring up about what the world looks like now in terms of connecting with people, in the sense that, it's funny because I'm kind of in a different world now than I used to be. But early on in my career and a large part of my speaking career, I was on the phone with clients. So I learned early on, and this is for anybody that wants to get into speaking post-COVID, like let's, assume all the live events came back. One of the things that I found where people struggled, now you have to classify or clarify what you want to be as a speaker. But for people who want to do what Kelly and I did, where you're paid before you walk in the door, so you're not selling, you can sell stuff there, but you're not having to sell anything to get paid for the talk. That right now is what's died to quite a degree, because of the fact that that's usually live speaking. The virtual events, people that are doing those are getting half the fee they would if they're doing it live. That stuff has suffered quite a bit. I believe it's coming back. I'm already starting to get people reaching out saying, hey, can you speak at our live event at this time? Most of it's late 2021 or early 2022 beyond. But having said that, one of the things that I think where people struggled is the people that wanted to do that kind of speaking don't realize that those kind of things typically that could change, haven't been booked through social media. So in other words, the CEO of corporate company or an association manager of the plumbing association, typically they're not booking their speaker on social media. Exactly. And the key thing is they're getting enough inflow of people reaching out to them via phone, which is this, even though social media is more social, when you're on the phone with the person, you've got their full attention. They're not juggling 1,000 things. And so if I were to guess, I would say, whatever the number is, but probably 75% of the bookings that happen in the speaking world, there's been at least one phone contact. Yeah, I'm talking live speaking now. And so I bring all this up and go full circle, Debora, because that becomes the new challenge if people are switching and gonna, maybe some of them and a lot of them, I would say, are going to stay in the remote environment now and not get back to the office. How do you reach that person that used to be able to call on the phone and talk to at their office, if now they're given the liberty with their company to not have to answer the phone anymore? Now they can probably do stuff via email or even maybe on private Zoom calls and stuff. And so this is the point. I think we need to now transform the way we think about that, because phone calls did work really effectively for live speakers. In fact, I would say the reason a lot of people struggle to get bookings is because they weren't willing to do that. Email would be the second closest. Social media would be the third. So, and this is as somebody that, as a speaker, did 20 years of paid speaking and speaking often. And I can tell you that 60% of my bookings, and I'm just throwing a number out, but I mean, the lion's share was through the phone. Probably another 30% was via email. And the 10% that was social media would be the people that had already been following me for a while. And I called them before, and then they connected on social media. They watched me for 3 years. Then they have a booking and they have the trust with me. So they reach out a messenger, but it didn't start there. Anything other than referrals and word of mouth and stuff, that's the ratio. So it's a good point you made, Debora, that I think people need to consider is the phone was already struggling for prominence. And I think it's going to be struggling even more now going forward. So that's a bit of transformation.
Some people are saying that it's going to go back to the phone. And you know what else? I don't know if a lot of people have experienced this yet, but people are tending to go back to the mail.
Oh, like, I was just going to jump in because it looks like I was the only one left. I'm like, what the heck? You guys left me all on my own.
I guess it kicked me and Debora out. I thought it just kicked me out. And then when I came back in, I saw Kelly was there by herself. That's so weird.
And then my son brought me some waffles. They're little heart-shaped waffles.
Oh, boom.
So there's 3 of them, one for each of you.
Oh, great. And whenever I got kicked out, it said Facebook is experiencing technical issues, but I think it's even outside of what we're doing. But who knows? We're back. We're all back now, so that's what matters.
Maybe Facebook didn't like it when I mentioned the mail.
Yeah, well, that said, I'm going to pull you back into that. So hopefully Facebook likes it the second time, because you were right. You're right saying, I don't know if people noticed, but the mail is making a comeback. And I'm going to say, I'll let you jump back in there, Debora, but I'm going to say, yes, I have noticed that. And we're starting to use that for mailers for like books and stuff to get them in the hands of really big influencers. We're using the mail. We're not using email and saying, hey, do you want an ebook or PDF? We're sending physical books.
Yeah, and you know what? If you recall, I mean, things seem to be cyclical, right? We know that in life, right? It's not unlike seasons and, weather in lots of ways, And, but so for a long time, and like I say, I've been in the business world a while and seen many, many changes. And I remember when email first came in, like that's like a dinosaur, And so I was in my business and, all of a sudden, you got people saying, oh, send me an email. And you're going, well, why can't we just talk, But anyway, you go with the flow and you make your changes and you adapt. And so for a while, it got to where people only wanted things by email. And then, people, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of emails in a day. So now people do email dumps early in the morning, right? So you don't want to send your stuff early in the morning. You want to get it after they've done their email dump. And so now people don't get anything in the mail. So when they get something in the mail, you say, wow, I got something in the mail. It's not a bill and most people don't even get bills in the mail anymore. So now they get something in the mail. It's like, whoa, somebody sent me something, and they open it up. So it's kind of wonderful, but it should be something decent. I think if you want somebody to open something, you make it worth their while.
Yeah, to that point, that's why I order stuff, I think, from Amazon, as I like getting the stuff in the mail. Yay, look, I got something. But really, I triggered the something. It's like buying yourself a birthday card and mailing it to yourself. But I get excited, like, to open a book. And it doesn't have to be a book. We order, like, stuff for the house. We order stuff online, and it's not because we don't want to support local. It's just we can't buy much local. We're in a small little town, and there's hardly anywhere you could buy certain items that we want. But it's exciting to get it in the mail, if I'm being honest. We buy the small things local, or if it's a certain book, right? An author, a friend of yours put out a book. Well, we only have one tiny bookstore in the town. And if they're not carrying it, you can't get it locally anyway. So, but I mean, so I order a lot of stuff online, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to open that box. And my mail actually goes to my mother's because, well, we always had it set that way when I was traveling so much as a speaker, and we just haven't changed it much. So anyway, she always sends me messages, and I tell her to open it, and she'll open it, and it'll be a picture of a book I ordered, and it's exciting. I get the benefit twice because she opens it and I see the picture, and then I get to go pick it up. So I agree with you. We like the mail.
Yeah, that's like why people shouldn't shy away from sending a picture of something as a gift if something's going to be late, because people get the fun. And I always say to people, well, send them the picture of it, or put that in the birthday card or the Christmas card or whatever, and let them know they have something, you know, that's coming later, so they get the benefit twice.
It's better than not sending it at all because it's going to be late. So I agree with you completely. And so now, Debora, the other thing I want to ask you then is, as far as the work that you do, and as far as if we even circle around to the writing, for example, the contribution to the Blue Talks book, do you see your business in the near future taking another turn again? Like, I know you said you always have to be nimble and always have to be flexible. Do you see it taking another turn again, or do you feel like now, and I want to circle back to the book in a second, but do you feel like now you're grounded where you're supposed to be for the time being, or do you feel like it's going to be another jump again?
I think it's sort of a bit of a merry-go-round. I think, you know, you get ready and you do this. I'm not going to turn down ethical work from a company that wants us to do marketing for them, because I feel it's honorable work. I think doing the toughest part of a salesperson's job is important. It's hard. And so I love doing that, but I love speaking. And back to what you were saying, you know, about your live speaking. That's when I did speaking too. I spoke at one event. It was a paid event. Somebody at that event booked me at another event, and so on and so forth. So that's, you know, how it went in those days. We got paid. We got on the stage. We spoke for an hour or whatever it was. And, you know, you did your thing and away you went, and it was wonderful. With now, yeah, I plan on continuing the writing. I'm a contributor for the writing with Maria Ray's Life Coach Journal, which I know you guys are part of too, and that's exciting. And I thank you for introducing me to Maria, Corey. So thank you for that. I am looking at doing more speaking and lots more writing, as Kelly's aware of. I don't know if you've heard of my Live Life and Wow. I think you have, Corey. And Live Life and Wow to me is wonder, openness, and wisdom. And I'm in the process of, with Kelly's help, writing a book on that. And it's going to be a nice short book of wows. And, you know, I think there's wow in every different language. And I think there's wow that's fun and wow that's not so much fun. And I want to share that with people. And I'd like, my goal is to get people thinking differently, get people looking at the wonder of life instead of the woes. That's where I want to be. And through the speaking events, I think they'll be more fun, I think, and more interactive if they're in-person events. However, I think there's a place for them online too, and I want to benefit veterans. I believe veterans in North America are not treated as well as maybe they could be or should be. And I'm a real fan of the fact that our freedoms and our choices come from people who were willing to step up and pay the ultimate sacrifice for our lives and for our freedoms. So I don't take that lightly, and I'd like to find a way to give back, and that's what I want to do. So I also have a collaborative book that I've introduced, and thanks to Kelly in her last event, where she allowed me to share that with people. So with her permission, I did, and I've got several people who are interested in collaborating in that. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about doing those events. So it's lots of unfolding and exciting things.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing that. And I guess on the writing side, as we start to wind down, because I know that's Kelly's, one of her favorite areas. So on the writing side, then what I'd love to ask you about, Debora, is do you have a process? Like, for example, when you wrote the chapter in our book, do you have a process that you go through when you're writing, in the sense that, do you like map it out beforehand? Do you sit with it and sort of meditate on it? Do you just jump in and start typing and it just comes together as you do it. And you could even talk about the book you're working on with Kelly and writing with Maria. Like, what's your writing process? And I ask that because some people have no process. Some people have a really detailed process. So I just love to hear how you come together with what you're writing.
I'm going to say yes to all of the above.
Okay. That's great.
My biggest process goes something like, okay, you guys, I have to have this article done. So can somebody please give me the ideas and what you want me to write about? And that's kind of how it goes. And then next thing you know, either pen is in hand or I'm, at the computer. I have one of my programs that I'm about to launch here fairly soon called Stepping Forward into Conscious Expansion. And it was basically a divine download. It just basically was. The same with Live Life and Wow. It was a divine download. I was told, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And this is what we want you to do. And they give me little bits. And when I say they, I'm talking the universe, angels, you call it whatever you want. I say they, you guys, I'm often, okay, you guys, let's go to work now. Come on now, we need some help. And you got to ask. You got to ask or it doesn't come because they can only help you with permission, right? So, but yeah, I'm just going to say yes to all of the above. Sometimes I go through a bit of a process. Okay, I'm doing this, and this. Sometimes I just sit down and it comes. Sometimes it's little bits here. Oh, I remember I wrote that down 15 years ago. Oh, where's that book? I know I have it and stuff like that. So that's, I think a process, the way Kelly does it is really awesome. And there's, many other processes out there, but I'm just going to say yes.
I love it. Well, and, it's Kelly, before we move on to kind of, I'm going to call it winding down. But before we do that, Kelly, I'd love to hear really quickly about your process. I just say this because I've never asked you this in all the time we've done this event. And I'll super quickly, even just before that, I'll share mine because I can share it in like a minute. But basically, because this is something I get asked all the time. And so it intrigues me how everybody writes differently. So for me, personally, I don't have an outline. And I'm talking even a full book. So I don't sit there and go, okay, the book's going to start here. These are the 12 chapters. And I, by the way, I wish I could, because I think that's an easier way to write perhaps, and more, more strategic and more aligned. But for me, I actually, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I start typing and whatever I'm writing about, whoever I'm writing about comes to life as I'm writing it. So if I wrote a parable book, like a tale, if you will, or an adventure book, I'm looking at it over here right on my shelf. And that book, the characters, once I decided who they were, they came to life throughout the whole book. And I never stopped once to say, why would they do this? Why is this guy smoking a cigarette? Nothing. It's like almost like I channeled the book. That's how I've written both fiction and nonfiction my whole life. I've never actually put an outline on a wall or nothing, even though, again, I think that would be a lot more structured. But Kelly, I'd love to hear your thoughts because I've never asked you that.
Well, I'm kind of like Debora, where I have to be inspired to write. So I'm not one of these people that, a lot of book coaches will say, you got to write 30 minutes every day. And if you do that for a month, you'll have a book. I have to be inspired. So what I do is I visualize who is that person that I want to help. And then I write out what are 10 things I want to tell them. And then I start my chapters from there. And that is something that I teach in my 3-day event that I did back in April. And we're going to do another one in June. And that's exactly how I'll do it again, is what are those 10 things? And then it just goes from there.
I like that because it's like you're writing, who am I writing this for? So almost like, who's my ideal, what do they call avatar in the marketing and social world? Who's my avatar or my ideal client or that should be reading this? And then what are the 10 things they need to know? It's like if you guys have ever heard of like the facts, but then there's the SAQs, should ask questions. So facts are frequently asked questions, but people say you also should say, but what are the questions people should ask you but never do? And a lot of people say that's where the money's really at, because everybody asks you, like, if you're going to write a book, should you publish or self-publish? But maybe people should be asking, what should my goal be on writing a book? I'm just throwing this out of nowhere. But if your goal is I want distribution, then your answer is going to be different than my goal is I want to make more money per book. Because if you want more money per book, that's self-publishing. If you need wide distribution across the world, you're going to have a hard time doing that as a self-published author. So what I'm saying is the should ask question should be, how do I set my goals? Or what are normal goals for writing? So anyway, Kelly, I know I'm going in a different direction, but I don't think a lot of people realize that it's great to say, what should people be asking me? And so maybe those 10 things are, what should that person be asking me, or should they know? I love that, because again, I don't take an approach like that, and I wish I did. Someday I will.
Well, and how it came about is because a few years ago, I had to do a speech to at a burn survivor conference. And so I was one of the keynote speakers. And so I got thinking, okay, so some of these people are brand new as far as they had just got burnt. What are 10 things I'd want to tell them? Right? Because my normal speech that I would do was not going to fit with them. So I wanted to do something that was going to be really high level, beneficial, specifically just for burn survivors. And so while I was on the airplane, here I was figuring out, okay, what are my 10 things that I would want to tell someone who just got burnt? And it just kind of went from there. And I developed my whole speech that way. And then I was thinking, hold it, this is also a book, right? So, when people say to me, I don't know how to write, or I don't know what to write, I just tell them, well, imagine that person sitting in front of you that you want to help. What are 10 things you want to tell them? And maybe it's 15 things, maybe it's 20 things. It really doesn't matter. It just start with 10 and then go from there.
Yeah, I really like that. Brene Brown, when she was asked about how she delivered her TEDx talk and why she thought it was so effective, what she said she did was she actually spoke to the audience. So she wrote down her talk and planned her talk as if she was going to tell it to her sister, and as if her sister needed to know this information, like her life depended on it. And then she spoke to the whole audience as if it was her sister. And I think that's similar, right? Like figuring out what if I was sitting across from my brother and he needed to know 10 things, what are they? So I love that type of structure. And I wish I had more of that. And I will say, when I said that I don't do an outline, what I do is I visualize. So I know the end and the beginning of the book. Like right now I'm working on a book, and I'll reveal more of it soon, but I'm planning to write the book in July. But as I'm going through my day, every time I get inspired on something, I'll text myself something or message myself something. And so I already can picture how the book's coming together. I know what the basis of the book's going to be, but I don't know what the characters are going to say, or any of the dialogue, or any of that type of thing. And that's when I'll just sit down and write. And this is the most I've flushed out. Normally I just jump down, sit on the computer and type. But when you said about doing 30 minutes a day, I can't do that. I can't go, I'm going to go all year and type 30 minutes a day. For me, once I decide I'm writing, then I'm just obsessed. Like, I want to keep writing until it's done. And I say that, I mean, I wouldn't go like round the clock, but I mean, I might go 4 hours a day and finish it in a month. And that's just the way I write. So
I'm totally that way. And in fact, about when I did my, which book was it? Oh, I think it was Self-Esteem Doesn't Come in a Bottle. And one of my friends said to me, well, hey, you want to come, like, can we get together? And I was at the lake. And I said, you're more than welcome to come visit me, but I'm in writing mode. So that means that while my kids are playing at the lake, I am sitting on the beach and I'm writing. So you're welcome to come and write with me if you like. But I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of talking. And she's like, no problem, because she's a journaler. So she just loved it, because her and I both sat on the beach. We were both writing and, enjoying each other's company. But I'm just like you, Corey. When I'm in writing mode, I'm obsessed and you can't stop me.
Love it. Well, Debora, I want to come back to you, but I'll just finish by saying that Rocky, that movie, was written in 3 days. I don't know if people know that. Sylvester Stallone I forget which, he saw a fight. Muhammad Ali fight, I think, but he saw a fight. He got inspired and he sat down and wrote it in 3 days. Now, obviously, like all things, it was edited after and all that, but he wrote the core thing in 3 days. And that movie was the first movie he had. Might even be the only one. I don't know if he's had a movie since that was nominated for Academy Award, but that was the first thing he ever wrote. He ended up selling it, I think, for $500,000, and it was nominated for Academy Award. So, I mean, that was written in 3 days. So, I believe that most writing takes longer than that, but if you're obsessed, you can't tell me that the core message can't be put down in a short amount of time. So, Debora, come back to you. Anything you want to add there before I just ask you the last couple of quick questions?
No, I was just going to say some of the greatest songs ever written. If you've heard, writers and songwriters have said some of them are like in 10 minutes, because it just comes. And when I love the I know a lot of people don't like the word channeled, but that's to me what it is. And I think Kelly's program, the way she does the 10 steps, is absolutely fabulous for someone who doesn't feel they channel. I believe everybody channels, and that's a whole nother program. But I think that for people who are struggling a bit, I love Kelly's, 10 steps. But for people like you and I and many others, I believe in writing when you're inspired. I believe in writing when you're thinking. If you get a thought, I send myself emails in the middle of the night. If I get up and I've got a thought, off goes an email, or I run and write it down or something. So it's like you just do it when it comes.
Yeah, and to your point about the writing, I write music, and some of my songs that, at least myself, I would consider my best, and I'm not going to compare them to songs, that hit #1 and stuff like that. But I mean, the songs, some of them have been on the radio. One of my music videos had almost 10,000 people watch it. And the last CD was nominated for Rock Recording of the Year. So it's not like, I'm not saying it's high level, but at least it's, I'm putting out decent music. And I would say my strongest songs were written, if it's a 5-minute song, they've been written in 5.5. Like literally, I couldn't even stop because the words are coming out and I don't even know where they're coming from. Now I've had other ones where I labored over them, and some of them stuck, and some of them I threw them in the garbage because they just felt like such a labor. But I will say the same thing as Kelly said, though. It goes both ways. That song "Believe" by Cher, the story I heard, and I don't remember the exact number, but that song had like 30 writers and took 10 years to write. That one pop song. And then again, you could name some of the like, what is it called? What's that song by Lynyrd Skynyrd? Why am I losing my Sweet Home Alabama. I read that was written like in real time. Just wrote it start to finish. Every Rose Has a Thorn by Poison. Bret Michaels said he's got up out of bed one night and a breakup of a relationship, sat down and wrote the song in exactly as much time as the song lasted. And that song's been heard over 1 million times in the radio. So yes, I believe a lot of people do channel their writing. So Debora, the two last questions I want to ask you, of course, I'm going to want to ask you how we can learn more and connect with you further. But the second last question, and for me, it's an exciting question to ask because I've asked this question over 5,000 times. I call it my time machine question. And basically, it goes like this. If you could get into a time machine, go back and visit a younger version of yourself and give her one piece of life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might tell younger Debora?
I would tell her not to allow past events and experiences to control the future. To accept it for what it was and not stay stuck there and being in your own way. Because that's kind of my story, and that's, like I say, a whole other ballgame. So I just stayed stuck for a long time.
And so here's the follow-up question. Just out of curiosity, do you think she would listen, knowing that younger Debora?
I think she would. I think she would have had more confidence and belief in herself, and she would have let go of the fear that people didn't want to hear what she had to say.
Love it. And Kelly, do you have a closing question for Debora before I ask her how we can learn more and all that kind of good stuff?
No, I just want to see how we can learn more about Debora, how people can connect with her, because everybody wants to know.
So Debora, before you jump to that, then I'll ask you one last mini final question. Do you have any last things you'd like to share? Like on my our other virtual event, Elise calls it, what does she call it? Mind seed. So like a nugget of wisdom or what have you that maybe we didn't uncover today. Is there anything else you would share with people, or life advice, or anything else you would like to leave people with that they can take into their life and use to their benefit?
Stop beating yourself up. Let's just all stop beating ourselves up. We wouldn't do it to our best friend. We wouldn't do it to anybody we love. Why do we do it to ourselves? Let's just be nice to ourselves a little more and kind. One of the biggest things we say, be kind, especially right now. Well, let's be kind to ourselves.
I really dig that. We got to move it in our new place, but in our last place, when I walked in the door, there was a frame, and Shelly put it together with like how you turn a picture into like a chalkboard or whatever. I don't know a whole lot about how you do that, but I knew she did it. And so basically she took a frame, picture inside, and now it's a chalkboard. And she wrote on the chalkboard a bunch of things, but one of them was, what would somebody who loves themselves do? And that's the thing I saw when I came in every day. And I decided to use that with decisions I made. Like, if I loved myself, would I do this? If I loved myself, would I do this? And it's amazing how powerful that can be. You know, I'm not going to judge what anybody else does, but it's like smoking, right? Like if you're not a smoker now, whether you are or not, I guess, but I have friends that are smokers. I'm not judging it. But if you actually got deep down into that, if you love yourself, would you smoke? Most people would probably say no. And I should clarify. I'm not saying they don't love themselves. I'm saying, like, if you ask, like, if you're let's say your cousin said, should I smoke? And you weren't a smoker, what would you say? You know, so if that's what you say to them, think about what you're saying to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think about decisions all the time. How would I answer that? And so it's easier probably to say to somebody else, because we either want to believe we love ourselves or we want to do work there. But even if you ask, what would I do, and what would I do to help somebody else? What would I tell somebody else if they asked me this question? And if you made your decision based on how you answer that, I think that's probably 90% of what it takes, you know, to make things happen for you. So I just love that you said about that. Don't beat yourself up. Let's be kinder on ourselves, gentler on ourselves, because I do believe that if you love yourself, how would you treat somebody else? And so if you would treat somebody else like that, treat yourself like that too. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. So Debora, the last question we said we were going to ask is about how we can learn more. So a double part to that is, where would you send people if they want to learn more? And then what type of people, like what type of clients do you typically work with, so somebody knows if they're right now listening to this, they're an ideal client for you?
Well, I work with professional people, business organizations, again, depending on which side, whether they're wanting the marketing or the intuitive consulting. And that lots of times goes hand in hand, by the way. So my marketing clients kind of get the business benefit of both, but they can reach me at either of my websites. I've got insightfulsolutions.com or smashthroughmentor.com, and I'm also on Facebook. It's Smash Through Mentor, and I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Debora J. Hollick. And so reach out to me, however, and you'll find me somewhere.
I love it. So Kelly, like I said, I want to give you one more chance. Any other questions you asked Debora, or anything else you want to add?
No, I think it's great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Debora. It's been great chatting with you.
Well, thank you. I could talk to you guys all day. You guys do great work. I want to say thank you for all you've done for so many of us. So I regularly express my gratitude and my encouragement for people to reach out to both of you. So thank you again so much.
Oh, wow. You just made my day. Thank you so much, Debora. I so appreciate you. And where I do have something at the top of the hour, I'm just going to say our goodbyes right in real time rather than me, doing a wrap up afterwards. So thank you so much, Debora, for joining us. Thank you, Kelly, as always, for being an amazing co-host. Everybody else, we're going to be here all week, basically the same time every day, which is 11 Eastern. And then we just go from there. Usually we have 4 guests. So we'll be back tomorrow, same place, same start time. Kelly, again, anything else you want to add before we all run off?
No, that's everything.
Okay, so I'll just say, if you want to learn more about Blue Talks, visit us at bluetalks.com. Blue Talks book number 4, Kelly and I are working on getting it released. Actually, I think the website's up right now, so we'll probably talk a bit about that tomorrow. So again, thank you both. I appreciate you. I salute you. We'll call it a to be continued, and I'll see you tomorrow, Kelly.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.
Thanks, everybody. So appreciate you all.